The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil. Phil's had a rough few minutes.
I gotta tell you something. I was expecting us to have 1 million viewers by now,
Right.
and I'm a little disappointed. Not in you or me, not even in us. Mostly not even in our director. Mostly,
Tell me.
I'm a little annoyed with our viewers and our listeners.
Folks, we can't go viral unless you're the carriers.
Yeah, think about it. If Andy and I just keep giving each other colds, no
Right?
big deal, right?
Nobody cares.
No.
Steven Soderbergh doesn't make a movie about that. You know what I mean?
No. Well, Steven Soderbergh doesn't make a movie about anything anymore. That's his deal. He's done. But that's neither here nor there. Anyways, right?
Playing the part of the pedant today, Phil Duvall.
All I'm saying, Americans and Irishmen and Welsh and Chinese, is seriously spread the love.
Yeah.
You like
spread
what we're
the love.
doing? Be a jerk about it and make everyone else pay attention. So
Spread the love. Like
I'm
an STD.
quite honestly surprised that some famous people haven't started listening to us yet.
I know, right?
I don't understand. We talk about them flatteringly. From what I understand, they all have big egos coupled with incredibly fragile self-esteem magically. We should be like the bread and butter for them.
I have not been in the presence of a naked Matthew McConaughey playing the bongos. And I mean, I feel like my life
Wait,
is...
you're the last one in America.
Yes,
to have not
that's right. That's right.
I did that. It was the summer of 2004. It was
Right?
amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
I shouldn't be the last one.
First of all, McConaughey's a perfect example of a guy who should be listening to our show.
Oh, totally. All right. All right.
Because all we do is talk about how great he is.
Yeah, it's true.
You talk about it. I actually was thinking this morning. You showed me the article about him turning down $15 million to play Magnum PI, which I'm not sure I believe, by the way. I'm straight up not sure I believe that. That
Which
being said,
part that it was offered or that he turned it down?
that it was offered that much money.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Because he obviously didn't do it, so clearly...
Right.
Right. And if I'm wrong, get on the show, Matthew McConaughey, and prove me wrong. But what's funny is I realized you jumped, maybe you've seen him in more stuff recently, but you jumped on his bandwagon more readily, which I think is a great bandwagon to be on. I'm with you. I mean, sure. I hope Mud, but it's almost like, I don't know, I guess like he has a career reinvention that is, especially if he wins an Oscar this year or even gets nominated for an Oscar this year, which we both agree he should.
Yeah.
If he wins one or gets nominated this year and then gets nominated again next year so that it's very clear that we're not kidding about him.
Right.
This is career reinvention. This is career reinvention on the level of Ben Affleck. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, agreed. Totally agreed.
In
some
ways,
failure to launch.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Ugh. I'm sorry I interrupted. Please continue.
I don't know. It's even a different kind of. Anyways, you know what? We'll talk about this some other time. My point is, just spread the word, or don't. I guess whatever. Keep us all to yourself and your nice little you selfish people. I don't know. What am I saying, Andy?
You know what? You said it, but I agree with you.
Oh wow! I was not hoping. I was thinking you were going to play the good cop to my bad cop. But this is fine.
You know what? I'm your good cop.
Oh man!
See what I did there?
Yeah, you made my heart grow 3 sizes this time.
Nice.
And on that note, let's talk about what's coming out this weekend.
Well, gosh, Phil, here's what's coming out this weekend. First, let's be honest, this is the one you all care about. If you care about any of them, it is conceivable you don't care about any of the movies coming out this weekend. We're still in what I would consider a fallow period. Dumptober, if you will.
Wow, I think there's a couple movies in it's September, buddy.
I know, but
Dumptember?
Yeah, but like January is like fine.
I'm sorry. I apologize. We were doing so good together. Everything was going so well.
No. What you're doing there, again, you're being pedantic, and that is clearly your role.
I'm kind of a pedant. It's a problem.
Which is it. You wear it well. You're very
Good question.
charming. Yes.
That doesn't mean anything about me and 8-year-olds, right? That doesn't. I'm just checking. I just want to make sure.
It doesn't not mean anything. That's not actually true.
A person who is excessively concerned with minor details and rules or with displaying academic learning. Hey! This describes me to a T. I don't like this at all. By the way, I like all the synonyms for pedant, but I'm the kind of guy who looks it up to make sure I am not that thing.
Right.
Dogmatist, ding.
Love it.
Purist, guilty as charged. Literalist, probably. Formalist, definitely. Doctrinaire, I just love the sound of being a doctrinaire.
Sure, it's a fun.
And then the last one is perfectionist, which I have problems with only because I feel like I'm too self-loathing to be a perfectionist. But I guess I'm a pedant. I'm nervous because I don't know that anyone's ever said that in a positive way. Oh well.
Moving on, then. to the movies this week. First, the one that you care about, probably if you care about any of them at all, The Family. The Family. Starring, you want to give us the rundown of the... I mean, there are basically 3 people in this movie that you care about.
I mean, there's Robert De Niro, Michelle Pfeiffer, and the girl from Glee.
Tommy Lee Jones has a small part.
Tommy Lee Jones
Yes.
is in it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm nervous about this movie. It's about De Niro being a mobster in a comedy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And it's directed by someone we've talked about recently, Luc Besson. So
It doesn't inspire anything in me right now. But I mean, he has potential.
You know
and
what
he
inspires
plays a
in me?
mob informer who goes. He's an informant. What is inspiring you?
that it's not going to be as good as The Professional.
That's really the only thing.
That's right. Go ahead.
Diana Agron is the other lady, and then the boy in it is someone.
I hope so.
And so De Niro's a mob informant who they get moved to to France.
Yes.
See, that interests me. For some reason, I thought it was like the suburbs, but the idea of them being sent to France is kind of hilarious.
It's true. It's true. Agreed.
Look. Everything you think I think about Diana Agron, you are correct.
It's fair. That's a fair point.
All the positive and the negative, whatever you think I think about her, you are probably right.
Sure.
I have so many feelings for her. I mean, really, like conflicting feelings, like contradictory feelings. Nevertheless, Diana Agron. So I'm excited to see what she can do here. I'm excited about the possibility of this movie. I genuinely want to see this movie, and and I'm not just saying this, like, okay, you know how we would say, I want this movie to be good?
Right.
What we quite often we're just saying that, but it's like, well, of course you do. You want every movie to be good. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Except for World War Z, I didn't want that to be good. But you want movies to be good. That's the whole point of them existing. And you want De Niro to be good in movies and all that, and Pfeiffer as well. This is a movie that I really want to be good. Like, I even the previews have made me laugh. Like, I've laughed at the previews.
Me too. I'm a fan.
So I'm hoping this is a good movie. I really am.
I know, it's so well said what you said about like what we mean when we say we want this movie to be good.
It's like right,
but
sometimes we do that as a way to be like, I wanted this movie to be good, but it wasn't. It's like, well, you probably didn't want it to be good then. You were probably just being a grump. But like, I really want this movie to be good, and I'm really worried that it won't be.
I know.
I hate that I'm getting my hopes up about this movie. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Coming out also this weekend, Insidious Chapter 2. I have not seen Insidious Chapter 1. I probably will because I like James Wan, I like Rose Byrne and Patrick Wilson. And I hear it's a good...
Byrne.
Yeah.
Rose Byrne.
Have you seen Damages?
Nope.
You would like that show, and you would like her in it.
I believe both of those things.
Indeed.
Both of them.
That's really all I have to say about that because I haven't seen the first movie.
I mean, it's made by the guy who made The Conjuring, which came out a minute ago.
And BT Dubs is the director of Fast and Furious 7.
I know, and the director of Saw 1 and Insidious 1. But let me say this. Literally, The Conjuring has the same main actor and looks like it's in the same house. So I'm sort of like, on one hand, I'm like, you just made a movie a minute ago. And on the other hand, I'm like, and obviously you just called a couple of extra people and shot another movie on the same set. And God bless you.
Right. like Lily Taylor and Vera Farmiga are like leaving on their last day of shooting, and Patrick Wilson staying behind. And
Patrick, come with us. I left my keys back at the house.
I got a thing. I have to.
I just left my keys back. I'll be right.
No,
I think I left the oven on.
I'm right behind you.
I will meet you in Los Angeles.
I am right behind you.
I swear.
Yes.
Ron Eldred's like, it's Eldred, right? Ron Eldred? That's not. No, it's Ron Livingston. Ron Livingston's like, how come he gets another job? I want another job. I was in Office Space.
Ron Livingston's married to Rosemary DeWitt. He's doing okay. And
Who's that?
She is the sister of Emily Blunt in Your Sister's Sister. I don't know if you've seen that.
You're just saying a bunch of stuff I don't know, but I love him. He was fantastic in Band of Brothers. He's fantastic in Office Space.
Yes.
He was great in The Conjuring. I would love to see Ron Livingston continue to be in things.
Me too.
And I'm glad that he's married to a hot person, even though I haven't seen her. I think that's fantastic.
She's lovely, and she is extraordinarily talented.
Oh, her.
There you go.
All right. That's what's great about that is she is very beautiful, and at the same time, like, she's like a real actor.
Yes, agreed.
She's not famous for being hot. She's a good actor who happens to be very attractive.
That is the perfect way to say it.
I just like to hit the nail on the head with the hammer. That's what I do.
You put your pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. Difference is once your pants are on, you hit the nail on the head. So, the two movies coming out this week, and this will take longer than I thought I would. The first one,
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Jane Mansfield's Car, Billy Bob Thornton wrote, directed, starred in, and the other one coming out in the middle of next week, Enough Said, with Julia Louis-Dreyfus and James Gandolfini.
That's coming out this week?
It's limited release September 18th. So what is that?
Okay.
Next Wednesday? Before next Friday, let me put it that way.
Have you seen the previews for this movie, Andy?
Folks, this movie looks so good. It looks charming. It looks romantic, but like actually romantic and real, not romantic and Hollywood. And if there are two people around, if there is a list of people that are more innately charming when they want to be than Julia Louis-Dreyfus and James Gandolfini, it is not a long list.
We just watched in the Loop this week, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in this podcast.
Yes.
And I've said it, I'll say it again and again and again. James Gandolfini, based solely on The Sopranos, is one of my 3 or 4 favorite actors of all time.
Yeah.
And watching him in that movie reminds me why, and reminds me that it's not just because of one character, although that's the big reason, but he clearly is able to do other things.
Yes.
And that this is a guy that, had he not died, would have spent the next 20 years becoming even more of a well-known.
Yes.
I just think his talent is immense.
I agree.
Unfortunately, so was his appetite. But he is just he was so good in The Loop.
Yes.
And I cannot wait to see him. Maybe he'll get a posthumous Oscar, which is ridiculous. I'm not saying he deserves it, but let's just give him a posthumous Oscar.
What the
maybe
hell?
my voice could go higher.
I was wondering. So yeah. So that's what's coming out. The Family, Insidious Chapter 2, Jane Mansfield's Car, Enough Said. I'm going to see at least 2 of those movies. Not this week, because I'm not going to see Insidious Chapter 2 this week. Eventually I will see it. I will eventually see Jane Mansfield's Car when it comes to town. I will eventually see Enough Said when it comes to town.
Yep.
And that's our story about looking at the weekend ahead.
And we're sticking to it. Oh.
Indeed. And now, folks, we've got a guest for you. A brand new segment on our show, and a brand new guest to bring it to you, Keith Porcaro, who is not just our guest. Phil, he is not just our guest.
He's not just a member. of the Hair Club for Men, he's also the director. Oh wait, something
That's
like
both
that.
wrong
That's
and
not-
backwards, but I like where your head's at. I do.
I think,
Look at that.
I think compared to the
But
two of you, I pretty
look
much
at
I
that
am the
hair.
Hair Club for Men.
You,
Yeah.
you are a success story when it comes to hairlines.
Like,
You're gonna
it's
be one of
all-
those guys who's like 85 and just it's all like white, but it's glorious and thick.
I think it's even money, but right now it's all natural, cage-free hair.
I love that. Do you now is your do you have baldness in your family?
Yes, it's
Hmm.
either bald or white, and right now I'm going white.
Here's the deal.
Well, I've actually read a survey that said that women find gray hair, a full head of gray hair, more attractive than the bald head. So, well done, you.
Well played, Keith. Also,
We'll see.
Phil, it's useful to remember that Keith is 7 years old. So,
That's right. Well,
talking
he's got
about
a,
him,
Andy.
in-
He's
Yes.
got about as good a facial hair as you've ever had. I mean, he can.
This is like 2 days worth of. I
No,
actually
that's
I
my
just
point.
shaved the hobo beard off. For
No, I
you
mean
guys.
you've had a longer beard, but I
Sure.
mean it very easily. You can see that he would grow it out.
Oh yes,
Like,
oh
and it
it's
would
true.
look pretty amazing. That's
It's
all
true.
I'm saying.
So he's
He's
very advanced for his age.
He's very Italian, is what he is. Just a hairy old Italian.
Yeah.
Is
So
he?
here's the deal. Percaro, isn't that Italian?
It's totally Italian.
I
You totally
mean,
get it. Yeah.
It ain't German.
I'm
Okay.
kidding.
So, Keith, you're the director of our podcast.
It's true. Tell us, Keith.
Welcome to our show.
Welcome to On the Air.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's
the
it's a
man
thing
behind
to
the
be
curtain.
here. You know.
It's a thing. Pull the strings. You're the string puller. That's who you are.
That's an interesting. I don't think I've ever heard that as a metaphor for what I do.
Well,
Basically,
now
folks,
you have.
what we're saying is if there's anything, literally anything that you don't like about Second Breakfast Podcast,
You should ask someone else.
blame Keith.
I do.
I do too.
It's true.
So we're going to talk about a movie with you, Keith. But before we talk about the movie, I think people need a little bit of an introduction into who Keith Percaro is. I want to point out that I met you through this podcast before you became a director. You were just somebody that was a thorn in my side, and Andy felt like that was exactly the kind of person that we needed involved with the show, which I try often not to take offense by. But I'm a little offended. And so our relationship at times might be characterized as antagonistic, but I am on board with you being on board. But I am curious if you could say to the people sort of like how you came to be a part of a Second Breakfast podcast.
So is this the part where I reveal that I'm just a construct created by Andy to continually agitate Phil, and that he's actually been sending out the director emails, and I'm just an actor that they pay when he needs to get a Skype call going?
You're like Simone.
Did you
Right,
see
yeah.
that? Did you see that thing about the viral twerking video where the girl's leg catches on
The
fire,
Jimmy
and it
Kimmel
turned
thing?
out to be a Jimmy Kimmel troll on the world? Jimmy Kimmel, I'm going to put it down right here
Okay.
because not even 50, 20 years from now, everyone will be on board with this. Jimmy Kimmel is a national treasure. I'm not saying just that he's talented or he's a great guy or blah, 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 blah. I'm saying Jimmy Kimmel is a national treasure, and he will be looked at as an exemplary American entertainer 20 years from now. More so, I'm going to go out on a limb and say more so than any of the other people that are doing late night right now.
Wow.
Wow.
More than
I-
Letterman.
So you've already cast your lot then in the Jimmy Kimmel versus Jimmy Fallon.
Well, first of all, yes, and Jimmy Fallon's fine. I mean, he's a lovely guy apparently, but no, I think Jimmy Kimmel is definitely, and Letterman will go down in history as a very important figure.
Sure.
But Jimmy Kimmel, but here's the thing: Letterman has never, ever been beloved by America, and I think Jimmy Kimmel, and that's fine. He doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
but I think Jimmy Kimmel will be. I think he's going to be someone that America is like, that's our guy. I really think that about him. And they've never thought that, but he'll have the popularity of Leno, but he'll have the cool cachet of Letterman. That's what I think he can pull off.
I look forward to finding out whether you're right or wrong because it's a fascinating thing. I love it.
You can
But
look
he
forward
just
to it
keeps
on the
doing
nose.
the right. He just keeps doing the right thing.
But here's the deal. Agreed. I know him almost not at all because I don't watch TV the way people watch TV. But
But back to Keith.
back to
We
Keith
can come
and back away
to me.
from television. It's
Sorry.
weird. It's weird. I itch all over.
You're such a weirdo.
I know.
It's a little weird.
Keith.
It is.
That's,
Thank you. Keith.
that's also why I'm here.
It's a
I'm
bit
here
weird.
to
It's a bit
to
weird.
temper Andy's weirdness and
Thank you.
Phil's agitation.
Yes.
You
Good
know,
luck.
and sometimes get confused about what the word temper means. But you know,
So Keith and I met in law school. Keith is a fellow Dookie, and
Dookie. I wish
And-
that was what you guys were called, Dookies.
that is what we're. I mean, we
But you're
call
called Blue Devils.
Keith,
well, yeah.
back me up here.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't refer to Andy as my fellow Blue Devil. I mean,
Oh.
Right. Right.
it sounds a little too much like a come on or something.
Right. Right. Or like, yeah.
You Blue
yeah.
Devil.
Yes.
Yeah, like that.
Yes. So yeah, we are Dookies. That's it. That's all. That's all the introduction
all you're
getting
gonna give
from
us?
me.
Okay,
So please,
okay.
Keith, go.
Oh, there you
No,
go.
that seems pretty sufficient. You know, I like to maintain the air of mystery. One day, Andy was like, "Hey, you should direct our podcast," and I was like, "Great." Well, I don't understand what that means. And Andy explained. He typed some words that I don't remember anymore. He's like, "You can just kind of give us general guidance, and you know, occasionally criticize Phil's hair." And I was kind of confused, but
that is not true.
it's totally true.
It feels true.
I have the emails to back it up, and if either they might not exist now, but they will exist at some point.
Wow, this is painful.
Yeah. Well, then Keith's doing his job.
I think that segues into the. I think that's inspired by In the Loop. I feel like
Nice.
Fair
That's
enough.
the ver-
So this is a segment. I'm not quite sure how many movies will fall into this segment, because Phil and I, you may have noticed, Keith and Second Breakfast Nation, we watch a lot of movies. But
that's the other important thing. I don't watch that many movies.
yes,
Okay.
which makes you strangely so far the perfect person to direct our podcast. But there are movies out there that Keith loves that Phil and I have never seen. And so we're doing, this is a segment called Director's Cut, where he makes us watch, much like I make Phil watch movies for horror school, he makes us watch a movie that he loves that we haven't seen, and then we're going to talk about it. And the first movie is, Keith?
In the Loop.
In the loop. Loop, comma, in the.
No.
No?
No.
Okay. God, I don't like this dynamic at all.
That was a good try. It was a good. I like where you're headed
Here's the
with that.
deal. Let me just talk to you like you're a guest on the show, Keith.
Sure.
When guests come on the show, we all have fun together and try to be positive and uplifting. We don't just beat each other up. So put your lawyer crap down for a second and let's all have a good time. Shall we?
I really appreciated your abstract interpretation of the title, but no.
So Keith, insofar as such things are useful, because I'm not sure it's 100% useful with this movie, tell us, give us a plot synopsis.
Sure. In the Loop is a product of, I think the guy's name is Armando Iannucci, who is
That is correct.
well known now in the U.S. for being the creator behind Veep. And
Veep.
similar to Veep, it is a sausage-making factory about the run-up to a unspecified war.
What?
This came out around the time of...
Could you dumb it down and tell us what sausage has to do with this?
Yes. Basically, it's a political satire about low and mid-level officials running around debate as the debate for a unspecified war on an unspecified country goes on.
Yep. Okay.
Yes.
And that's pretty much it.
Bang up job. Yeah, it's not heavy on plot because it doesn't need to be.
It's startlingly non-specific. It came out, when I first watched it, it was kind of around Iraq War time. And so it seemed clearly like aimed at that. And I watched it again last week for this and kind of don't get any of that at all.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I just nobody in 20 years, nobody will watch it and be like, so was this about Iraq or is this about some, like whatever random country we're deciding to bomb next?
Sure.
All right.
It's funny. I didn't feel the poignancy in terms of I didn't feel like it was meant to be deeper than just, gosh, isn't government totally jacked up, and isn't it hilarious how creative people are at cursing? That's pretty much the two things that I got from the entire. Now, I liked the movie quite a lot. I don't know if I loved it. I think I could grow to love it. This is a movie I feel like on 12th viewing, I would be like, oh, I love this movie.
Sure.
But the first time through, I didn't laugh for the first 20 minutes. But it wasn't because I didn't like it. Like, I was sitting there being like, okay, cool. And then, like, a couple laughs came. Then by the end, I was like, laugh, hilarious. But I feel like, for some reason, I was like, why do I care again about British people? Like, what? I think there's this weird thing where Americans, like, and we see it more in television, which makes Andy itchy to talk about. But people are like, I watch British television. And it's just like, I mean, okay. It's just that, it's like, there's a whole, I feel like people think they're more sophisticated for liking it. But what I liked about what this ended up being, two things. One is, I like that America was brought into this because it wasn't just about the British government. It was about how our governments interact.
Yes.
And it made some really good shots. Took some really good shots at American government in a way that I thought was not just plain old America's terrible. It wasn't the way they do it in Love Actually, for instance. It wasn't like hit you over the head with like this sort of American English dynamic.
Right,
it was
right.
a really nuanced dynamic.
Yes.
And it showed both of them as being sort of, messed up and made fun of England while making fun of America. Like legitimately made fun of both. But also like I felt like it was I don't know, because it had the Americans and the English together, then I was able to start caring about the English political system. because I mean, like, I think there's a way that we can love this stuff as outsiders.
Oh, sure.
But when they put Americans and English together, then we're not outsiders anymore. Even when we're watching their stuff, we're not outsiders. Does that make sense?
It does.
Otherwise,
make
it's
sense.
just like, oh, isn't that interesting how they do it over there?
Right.
Like
Believe me,
watched,
I wasn't laughing at you because I thought you were wrong or because I thought
Right.
you were kidding.
Right. I mean, it's like watching Get the Gringo recently. We watched Get the Gringo, the final film in our Project Melway experience.
That was not my
national
fault, by the way.
nightmare is
That was
over.
not my
No,
fault.
that was pre-Keith that we made that decision.
That's right. I do. Yes, it is.
I'm
It is
interested
right
to see
that
what
we.
you bring to the table.
Yes.
Well,
but anyway,
our
that was
viewers-
set in
yeah,
Mexico, and so much of it was like, let's have a white guy as the main actor so that we can all like watch Mexico. But it felt very much like this. I don't know. It wasn't really critical of America at all. It was really just about like what a white person thinks of Mexico. Is sort of what I thought Get the Gringo.
Yeah,
But
it's
this
fair.
movie had like this movie really did a good job of juggling. It wasn't about America or about England. It was about an international relations essentially. And
Yeah.
and again, and cussing creatively.
Right. And I think that's the only time that the word nuanced will ever be used when describing this movie, is in talking about the dynamic.
Oh, really?
Well,
Yeah, I think
Let's
the
see more
beginning of
about
the
that.
movie. I think the beginning of the movie invites you to, for somebody who doesn't have any background about the film before going in, it invites you to take it seriously for a little while. So I think the first like 15 minutes are the least sweary of the bunch.
Right.
You're
Well,
not
it's-
sure in the first few minutes what kind of movie this is going to be.
Right.
Unless you know, because apparently it's based on a TV show that was in England, and that character that he played,
Right.
the main character, who's an assistant to the Prime Minister, has been, like, I guess that's a TV show already?
Yeah,
Is that right?
it's in the thick of it is what it's called.
Okay.
So is
Okay.
he
And so-
basically is Malcolm Tucker basically like the Detective Munch of England? Like he's been on like 18 different television shows and always played by the same guy?
No, it's just this.
Oh,
Although
okay.
speaking of that, he is actually going to be the new Doctor Who as well. For the like 3 people who care. I don't watch Doctor Who, but
I don't know that I would want to watch him not cursing because
right.
because
I've mentioned this to Andy Keith, but you're the director of the show, so you've probably never heard me say it because you don't listen to the shows. But at least that's based on the comments that you make. I'm
I
guessing.
direct from afar.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Pull the string. So I think I mentioned this to Andy. I listened to an interview with Armando Iannucci on Grantland,
But he doesn't swear. Right.
and he said he doesn't swear in real life.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. And his response to and Andy Greenwald, who interviewed him, thought that was really interesting. And his response was, I mean, David Chase wasn't in the mafia killing people either. But I think it's different partially just because part of the swearing, I think, I mean, as someone who loves bad words, is knowing the rhythm and the poetry of them and like using them. And the people swear. I'll say this. And I think Andy knows maybe Andy will know how much this means when I say this, but I haven't seen swearing this sublime on consistently. It's on Veep as well, as what this guy does since David Mamet.
I love that you said that, and I agree with you. And for those who don't know Phil well enough to know what that means, I mean that's
It's high compliment, people.
indeed that is as high a compliment about swearing as I think anyone could ever give, frankly.
Because I love Quentin Tarantino, and Quentin Tarantino uses swearing, but he portrays characters who use the F word and the N word a lot. But this guy shows people who use their words as weapons specifically. I feel like Armando Iannucci does with dialogue what Aaron Sorkin, maybe when he grows up, would like to be able to do.
Or I also think the comparison to David Chase is interesting, because I think that he treats words almost the way that violence is treated, and sort of with a similar disdain. Because this is like, at its heart, is like a scathingly cynical movie.
So we laugh.
Yes.
So we laugh at people who use these words, but we also basically are like, God, you're all terrible people.
Well, but like that's the indication that, I mean, that's your first indication.
No, I mean, that's what
that
you're
Malcolm
saying,
X is
right?
a terrible person. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
First and last indication.
right.
And I actually wasn't rooting for him in this movie. Like I found this really interesting. I root for Anna Klumsky because I have a huge crush on her. And I have a friend, Andy and I have a mutual friend that used to work with her, but when she took time off from acting.
Wow.
So
Well, she actually made out of. No. Okay.
she's in Veep too. I'm glad she's back.
I was rooting for like the person who, if he were slightly older, would have been played by Martin Freeman, the new guy on the
Toby.
Toby.
Oh no, because he cheated. No, because he cheated.
Yeah.
No, and then that happened.
Okay.
Right.
And I was like, oh,
no more.
There are no.
No, I was absolutely no. I was. Wait, am I wrong in thinking I was totally rooting for James Gandolfini? Aside from the fact that he's my favorite actor and he just died, I was rooting for him because he actually wanted peace. Like the general who wants
But then
peace.
he does the thing at the end.
Okay, but I mean, up until the very end, I'm rooting for him, and all he did at the very end was say, "I'm not going to resign. I'm a general, and there's a war on." Like
Yeah.
there was for me, he was the character that. I don't know. Maybe I'm biased because it's James Gandolfini, but I'm trying to figure out what the downside of his character was.
If I can respond to that, and then Keith, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. No, go ahead.
I honestly, maybe what it is for me is just that I totally agree with everything you've said, Phil, about how including the Americans sort of brings, like, we get to sort of be one with the Americans and one with the British. It sort of brings it together for us as the observer.
Right.
But I still functionally felt like he wasn't as important because the Americans didn't feel as important to me. It felt like a British movie to me.
Sure.
That's not a value judgment. It's not better or worse. It felt like, so it was like saying, like, what's his name? David Rashi, the jerk senator or whatever it is.
Oh gosh.
Like he's clearly one of.
You mean Sledgehammer?
Villains. Yes,
Sledgehammer. I don't know his real name in real life, but he's Sledgehammer.
He is. Like he just didn't seem important enough to be the guy that you root for. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess
Yeah.
I should say this. I was rooting for peace. And so
he's
I
the
wanted
guy-
and I
yes.
wanted the people who wanted peace to prevail.
Fair.
But that's
Yes.
what's funny about this movie, and what they do in Veep too is the issues. I mean, you basically sort of. I mean, in Veep, you don't even get the issues. They've done a phenomenal job on Veep for 2 seasons of you really don't know if this person's a Republican or a Democrat. Like, you really don't actually know. And they do it in a way that doesn't feel unnatural or forced. It's very well done. But I mean, in this situation, you're rooting for an outcome rather than a person. And if you think about that, now that I'm saying it out loud, that's actually one of the brilliant things of a movie, because in politics, we end up voting for positions, not people, because the people are all big, dirty liars who are terrible and should be arrested for being who they are. And yet we talk ourselves into thinking they're amazing and voting for them. Why?
Right.
Because they happen to somehow magically stand for all the things we believe.
Which is,
I mean, that's the
totally true all
deal.
the time.
Right.
Yes. Keith, thoughts about the movie part of what we're talking about?
I think that James Gandolfini's character and the other woman's name, who I can't remember, kind of represent the earnestness of it all. Like, they're sort of James Gandolfini more so, but they're both kind of the only ones that actually try and use the political process that has been laid out. Like, we will go to a committee and we will have this meeting and we will lobby in the ways that we should lobby, and they get like just completely outflanked. And I think that at the end, like, James Gandolfini's, admission that he's going to stick around rather than resign is sort of his utter defeat. Like,
He's
been
doesn't
totally outflanked.
What I find
Right.
really interesting is he does that, and it's not a. Oh, by the way, kids, if you haven't seen the movie, spoiler. We're clearly talking about this with spoilers. There's this like the reality for him is that he's just like you said, defeated. But what's interesting about it, like, and that makes it so that his response is not super calculated in the sense of like, well, I know what I have to do to survive. Like, moi. He's literally like, I'm a general. Like, there's that point where,
That's
like,
true.
again, no one gives him respect, but he's like, I'm a soldier. I've been a soldier my whole life. Like, I'm not going to resign over this. I know I said I was, but in the end, I can't. And there wasn't any, like it wasn't ha-ha.
Right.
I mean, then the last
Yeah.
shot is of him sitting there smoking a cigarette all by himself, hating everything.
Yeah.
So
Well, but
that's not winning, right?
right. Well, that's like the bureaucrats' defeat is leaving and having no career because they've been useless in politics for the last decade or so, and then the soldiers' defeat is actually having to go and fight a war they don't want to fight. Right.
Right.
Well said.
So this is your movie. What else do you want to say about it, man?
I think. Well, I guess if we get back to the sausage making factory, I would be really curious to see this type of movie in another context that isn't political. And I sort of wonder about, because to me this is sort of, if you think about like biologists talking about how amazing ants are, right, or how amazing like all these little tiny creatures building some kind of monstrosity on the landscape, and I sort of feel like this is Iannucci's. His response to it is, well, the ants are all kind of running around like idiots, and what they've ended up with is a big pile of dirt, and everybody's really proud of this pile of dirt.
Right. Do you
And
know, sorry, please. No, please
No,
continue.
no. No, I was going to say. I was just going to say that I would hope that he doesn't approach every walk of life as so cynical, or if it's just politics. But
Right. He might not be so much fun to hang out with if that
Well,
was the case.
that's like
Right.
when you go back to Sopranos. It's really interesting with David Chase, where basically Tony Soprano's struggle over life and death and existential strife was actually basically David Chase's struggle. So there's
Yeah.
a point where he goes, "It's all a big nothing," and like David Chase basically believes that, and so there is a darkness to that where it's like there may not be the mafia, but David Chase has this sort of like there's a darkness behind it all. You know, and that's so. I wonder, like, is he? I don't know, but Iannucci, like when I've listened to him, he just seems like a lovely guy who has a good time. But I wonder, like, if he's like deep down.
You know what
it's
movie
all
this reminds me of? And this might seem totally off the wall, but take
Bring it.
away the physical aspects of this movie, and it kind of reminded me of Noises Off.
Wow. Yes. Yes.
because it is a farce. It is cynical, and its heart is beautifully jet black, and all of that is true. But there aren't just a whole lot of people in Noises Off to root for either. And
Yeah.
it is a self-contained world in the same way that think of people who are not in politics that are in this movie. And it's not just because it happens in like the hallways of various offices. It's a conscious choice, right? It's a very insular, incestuous world, and the only person I can think of that isn't definitively in politics is the American tourist that asks Malcolm Tucker to stop swearing and who gets
Amazing.
demolished, right?
yeah.
And what that said to me, and that almost clinched it for me, because it was like
Although-
you are not of this world. Go to bed. Let the big boys play. You know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
theater
that
can
was
be
funny
way
because
too.
yeah. And by the way, that moment, I'm glad you brought that up because in that moment, that's exactly what that tourist needed to hear. Never tell someone to watch their language in public. Just you know what? Like, who are you? Just someone that miserable. Just let them be miserable.
Right,
You know,
yes.
it's a
Yeah.
God-given right to be miserable.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
You're ordering me to make a really lowbrow comparison to counteract that highbrow comparison with a movie.
in the words of Bart Simpson. Oh no, it's not Bart Simpson. There's that great Simpsons moment where Bart Simpson says, "Oh, I was going to tell you a joke, but it's too lowbrow," and the guy goes, "Oh no, I'm quite lowbrow."
Perfect. Phil, your comment about The Sopranos and David Chase sort of it being his struggle of it's all a big nothing or it's all a big darkness, it sort of reminded me of you've seen that commercial for SportsCenter from years ago where Lance Armstrong is pedaling in the shed to keep the lights on.
Yes.
That sort of seems like what they're doing here. Like you might think it's all a big nothing, but everybody's job here is to just keep pedaling to keep the light on.
Yeah.
Nice.
And again, what side you're on has very little to do with anything. It's really just keeping your job.
Yeah.
The light has to stay on.
You have to keep pedaling.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And everybody who loses their job, in some sense, I mean, some people lose their job because they're incompetent. Some people lose their job because they leak information they shouldn't. But to use your metaphor, a bunch of people do those things and keep their job. But the way in which the people who lose their job fail in some way, the light goes off. You know, they don't keep the light on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You're right.
Like Toby isn't the only person in the link of how the paper got leaked, right? But he's the one that loses his job, right?
Yeah. But there's a bunch of people lose their job in this movie.
Well, you're right.
By the way, speaking of which, there hasn't been as phenomenal this is the second best destruction of an office supply since Office Space. What that one guy does with the fax machine,
it's beautiful.
glorious.
Yes.
Glorious.
Yes.
I don't know who that guy was, but he, to me, almost stole the show. Because it was like, he did what, the main character's name is Malcolm. He did what Malcolm tried to do, but somehow Malcolm didn't really actually scare people. Did you notice that? Malcolm does this whole thing, and he seems so powerful, but he doesn't actually ever really scare anyone.
Right.
But that guy seemed to put the fear of God in people.
He also
It was
has
pretty fascinating.
I think he's got my favorite line in the movie, which I can actually quote on the Family Friendly podcast.
I almost don't believe you, so you have to quote it now.
In his first introduction, Malcolm's like, "Be gentle with them," and he's like, "Oh, you know me, kid gloves, but made from real kids."
Yes.
From real kids.
Yes.
That's right. That's
Yes.
right.
Yes, that is a wonderful line.
Well
and it
said,
is
well
way
said.
up there. This is not to contradict you, Phil, but something that I think is interesting about what you just said, because I agree. I didn't really think about it in those terms. What is that guy's name? Simon? Is it
Jamie, isn't it?
Simon is the name of the bumbling. Jeff.
Right.
four
I
office guy.
love Tom. His name is Tom Hollander, the actor, and I love him.
Yes, he's great. Yes,
He was in John Adams. He played King George, and it was like,
Yes.
If you've I recently watched all 12 hours of the John Adams, or it's 7 episodes of like an hour and a half. So yeah, like 10 or 12 hours of it. And the highlight of the entire thing is the 3-minute scene between the King George and John Adams, and his part is like,
Yeah.
it's that
That's
good.
right.
I love that guy.
You're right. The guy's name is Jamie, and he is not like, yes, they're clearly they are. Jamie and Malcolm are clearly kindred spirits, right? They just clearly are. But one of the things, and Jamie does seem to actually scare people, and Malcolm does seem to. He seems to scare people, but without actually scaring them.
Right.
But Jamie's also in AAA. Malcolm is in the major leagues.
True.
Or actually, what is kind of beautiful is Jamie might be in single A, and Malcolm is in AAA. I feel like there's a daddy Malcolm who's like next to the prime minister. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because Malcolm never actually exhibits a connection to the highest levels.
The important thing to note in all this is both of them are Scottish, and they have the best accents in the entire movie.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
It's true.
Just
What?
FYI.
Thoughts about that, Keith? About the accent or the levels that they're working on?
I think the height of Malcolm's power in the whole movie is when he's on the phone with that BBC reporter as he's walking into the office.
Amazing.
Like, You know, it's like
Amazing.
so he's basically in the scene. He's asking the BBC reporter how what the BBC reporter would like Malcolm to write on the cake to inform his wife that the reporter was cheating on him or cheating on her. And it's just a glorious, wonderful scene. But I think that what is it? Malcolm is supposed to be like the director of communications or something like that.
Yes.
I think he's actually supposed to be like a reasonably high up government official for
Oh,
somebody
yeah,
to
definitely.
not know who he is.
It's yes, but I don't think it's an accident that you never see him dealing with a superior.
No, I agree. I think that it's a deliberate choice to not have any high-ranking
Right.
officials. Just
Right.
as like
Right.
the president
You see-
has still never shown up on Veep, right? Like,
Right.
you know,
Right.
Right.
these are
Right.
just nobody would. But the prime minister like isn't going to bother with this. I feel like Daddy Malcolm is an American in this like
Fair.
depiction.
Fair. I guess my point is what I think is interesting. Most of the time, you would think like Malcolm is the highest ranking person that you see, so that gives him more stature, and in a weird way, it doesn't. It keeps him from attaining that higher stature.
Right. Because if he was really that powerful, we'd see him talking to the prime minister all the time.
Yeah, he'd just be like, "Screw this! I'm done with this nonsense. I'm getting the prime
Right.
minister on
And
the phone."
it turns out he's basically the whipping boy for the commissioner, the committee guy, and the American committee guy.
But at the same time,
Sledgehammer.
Yeah.
he created the fake intelligence report that started the war. You know, so
That's true too. That's
So
true
that
too.
works out.
and he did it out of a spiteful rage. I mean, I don't know if it's like he's got real power, but
Right. Real power with heavy air quotes around it, certainly.
right, it's the media forces of darkness, I guess.
Like you do.
Like you do. So, Phil, I'm not actually sure. You spoke about this earlier. Did you like this movie?
Oh yeah. I'm saying I liked it, didn't love it, but
Yeah.
I think I will love it eventually.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, to be completely 100% honest, I think watching a movie because I know I have to, and then on a schedule, watch this movie by this time, puts weird constraints on a movie. That's no criticism of our choice to watch the movie, but it's almost like I was like, gotta watch this movie now. And so it wasn't like sitting down and relaxing and watching a movie. And I think that
Totally.
actually does have an effect.
Sure.
So I was watching it like trying to watch to make sure I got the movie in before we met. And so before we talked, and that's problematic. But I mean, no, I think that I did like it. And I think, again, I think it's a movie that now that I've seen it and seen it all the way through and I get it, I can't wait to see it again.
That's well said.
But I didn't love it.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, oh my God, I want to see it again right now. But if it was on, I'd be like, I need to watch that. And I'd watch that scene. And there was, again, so many lines. So many lines.
Yeah.
The final conversation between Malcolm and Sledgehammer, where he's basically like, look, you win, but I hate you, and I'm going to call you just reprehensible names. And what I loved is that the thing he chose to call him, all expletives aside, was boring.
Yes.
One of my favorite insults, because it's like, you're just boring. Like, there's a lot of ways you could be terrible, but you happen to be terrible in a boring way.
What is it in American Beauty where Wes Bentley just decimates Mina Suvari? He's like, you're normal.
You're so average. You're average.
And when that movie came out, I was like, I get why she is upset by that, but I don't know why why that's an insult sort of in a larger context. And now I see that is just
because all she wants to be
is
extraordinary.
Yes.
And he's like, you're not.
Nope.
Like your friend that you use is who you think is such a is basically like your sidekick, is in every way, shape, and form more interesting.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating that American Beauty. We need to talk about that movie sometime.
Sure.
That's a movie that for some reason has not
Aged well.
no, I think it has, but I think its esteem hasn't aged. Like,
That's
maybe I'm wrong.
definitely-
Maybe we should watch it again and be like, no, this movie isn't as good as we thought it was. But that movie, when I remember seeing that, being like, this is why people make movies. Like, this is why movies are made.
Right.
So I don't know. I'd be interested to see it again and see if we still feel that way. But anyways, but that's it. You're average. You're just average.
And yet maybe it's my advancing age. But when that conversation came up in the loop, I was like, oh, like just like it hit me.
But that's his most potent weapon. Like, he's the scariest character in the movie because he's so boring, but he wins.
Yeah.
You know,
You're
it's like the future planning
Keith.
committee, and he bores everyone to death. And I guess that's maybe what if people aren't engaged in politics, is they're so bored. And
That's really well
he'll write
said.
the boring rules, and he'll
That's
win.
amazing. That's amazing.
Well done, Keith.
Yeah, and what's interesting, what makes that really interesting to me is that it makes it so that he doesn't even actually, and when you see the scene where he says it, my favorite part, where he's like, "You're boring," you don't even get the sense that he gets his feelings hurt by that.
Or
Right.
even the part where after I said, well, it was touch and go there for a moment. He's like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah,
No, that's it. It wasn't.
just.
Right.
It's a world that Malcolm makes his world by screaming at it until it conforms to his vision, and this guy is in a position where he can it just is so.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like he's a sophist's wet dream. Is that the?
By the way, the line in the movie in American Beauty is she says, "Well, at least I'm not ugly," and he says, "Yes, you are, and you're boring, and you're totally ordinary, and you know it."
Oh my god.
Like, and you know it,
Oh.
Ugh. I mean, what a just. I want to
That's
watch
just-
American Beauty right now.
Right? I rule.
That movie has some of some of my favorite lines of my lifetime.
Sure.
Have you seen that video montage of the best movie insults of all time? There's like 150 of them.
No.
I
It's-
have
it's
not. I
extraordinary.
have seen the best 150. I've seen one of those montages that lasts forever, but I don't think it was no. It might have been the insults. No, it wasn't. Was that
There's
on
two
there?
of them now. I know it wasn't. Nothing from
Oh.
The Loop is on there, I don't think, and nothing from.
That one relied way too heavily on Full Metal Jacket. I get it.
Yeah,
R. Lee
yeah.
Ermey is amazing, but you don't need to show every single thing. That he
Every
says.
single one that he
Pick
does.
three
True.
of them.
That's
Call it
true.
a day.
Yeah.
Call it a. So, anyways.
So Keith, what else is there? Do you want to talk more?
Andy, I'm curious to hear what you thought about the movie, because we talked about Phil likes it or doesn't love it. It's probably one of my favorite movies, but that probably proves my jet black heart more than anything else.
I said this to. I know I said this to Phil offline. I may have said this to you, Keith, offline, but I will say it online now. I have to see it again. I think I agree with Phil that there's something about it, and maybe it's just because as much as I love theatrical things and talking and screenwriting is what attracts me most to a movie and yada yada yada, it's so talky that it's missing that thing that's like, I got to the end of the movie, I'm going to start it over right now, and just watch it again. Having said that, I can't so putting that aside, metaphorically, I guess, I cannot wait to watch it again, because if I didn't love it, I'm awfully close. And I agree, I totally agree with Phil. I think it is a movie that will only grow in my esteem. Not the smallest reason why is that I will hear more of the lines because I was laughing.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
also, not for nothing, sometimes their accents are infuriatingly opaque.
It's true.
And
Yeah.
I love British dialects. I know British dialects better than any other, except for probably American, I suppose. But I know thick Scottish brogues, and I was like, nope, you're talking too fast. Gotta go back and put the closed captioning on.
I think I like your point that there's something that's missing that keeps you from loving it like the way you'd love The Spectacular Now or The Way Back. It's like because there's no heart, it's hard to love something with no heart.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you can't admire it, like it, appreciate it, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Can you love it? And the thing is, and maybe you can. I mean, Keith can, but again, he's a terrible person. But I do think it reminded me, Keith, that I loved it, or what I liked about it is actually the same thing I like about Veep. And one of the things I like about Veep, I would say this to my wife every time we'd watch it, is Veep, an episode can just end and I don't feel like my heart's in my throat. It's just, I laughed, I had a good time, and then it ended. Which is but it's smart laughter.
Yeah.
It's well done laughter. But it's like when you're watching Mad Men and Game of Thrones
And Breaking Bad
and Breaking Bad. It's like,
Yes.
oh my god. First of all, at least by the grace of God, Mad Men and Breaking Bad aren't on at the same time. And then Breaking Bad and Mad Men, but Mad Men and Game of Thrones are on at the same time. And while I don't love Game of Thrones like I love Mad Men, they both make a point of being like, how can we destroy you today? And it's, I mean, I'm not ready for when Breaking Bad and Parenthood are on at the same time.
Oh
That's
my
not gonna be
God.
good for me. It's going to be like a 1 week, but still.
Yeah. So I'm interested because both of you watch Veep and I do not, and I think I have to start.
Oh, yeah.
Here is the thing that was most interesting for me. And I stand by my earlier statement that like one of the reasons I have to watch it again is because I missed a lot of the lines because I was laughing. There were also scenes that I didn't laugh at, even though I found them hilarious, because my body was like, nope, you're gonna miss something if you laugh. And I want to know, like, I can believe that Veep is functionally the same thing, but at a different tempo. But do you find yourself, is that something that you, whether or not you do it, like, is that something I'm going to deal with when I watch Veep as well? That's not a complaint. It's not a complaint in any way. I just thought it was interesting. You know.
I watch everything on DVR, so it's so hard for me to like. I rewind all things all the time, and I don't even think twice about it.
Sure. Fair.
But yeah, I mean it's the same. I mean the only thing I'll say is it's in American accents.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so that makes it easier. But
Sure.
I mean, but it is, and it's funny in the same way. I mean, I honestly, it's funny in a way that sounds like this sounds like I'm actually like somehow insulting it. It's a show that's funny in a way that doesn't always make me laugh. Like there's times when I'm laughing at a line, but there's other times where it's just really well constructed comedy that keeps me amused.
Yes.
Like I'm just like, oh, this is great, but not necessarily like I can't stop laughing. It hurts. It's just like it just ends, and I'm like, what a beautiful piece of machinery this thing is. Like what a well crafted, enjoyable show.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes
both of them,
sense.
I think both Veep and In the Loop lend themselves very well to watching clips of them on YouTube. It's a very
Good call.
You know,
Good
it's
call.
kind of,
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, it's kind of like they're both I think the rhythm and they both use curse words like musicians use notes.
Right.
I think Veep is I find Veep a little bit more difficult to watch because it has a little bit more cringe humor, which isn't always my thing.
Sure. I think we all know how I feel about cringe humor.
Right.
It's true.
Love it.
And I think Veep is a little bit more mean spirited, but that wouldn't change my willingness to watch it.
I totally disagree with that. How can it be more mean spirited than what we just saw?
That's an excellent question, and
I think In the Loop is more cynical about everything.
Here's why I think Veep is less mean spirited, because at the center of Veep is Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who, while she is mean, shows herself as vulnerable to her staff in a way that Malcolm, the main character, most of the main characters in the Loop never show. And so we're able to see someone who actually is human, like her humanity and her joy and her fear and her frailty and her strength. And so you actually do root for her. And so that, and she's the central character. And so I think for me, it's like it has a heart.
It has a heart.
Even-
No, I agree with you. I agree with you that it has a heart. I think it is. I mean, there's a clip I think on Vulture that's just a clip of a supercut of all the characters insulting Jonah, like the West Wing staffer.
Amazing.
And it's just like
Amazing.
it's just a complete demolition of him.
Right. But it's all over a period of time.
Right.
And you got to remember that the character of Jonah on Veep is so. Andy, this is a guy. You know those guys that like, in our theater crew, whatever, that were just. You'd make fun of them, and after a while, you'd be like, God, why do we make fun of that person so much? And then they'd come up and say something, and you'd be like, that's why.
That's right.
That's
Like,
it, yeah.
Jonah's one of those guys that it's like people make fun of him to his face, and it kind of bothers him, but like he won't stop being the person who deserves it.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
so it's like, you know, it's just like
Yeah.
he deserves it.
Yeah.
Somebody calls him the world's largest single cell organism.
My favorite one was he was like, I'm not going to fit in that car, and the woman is like, well, you fit. Yeah, it's bigger than your mother's womb, and you were in there for 15 years. So,
Well, and what's Andy, and what you don't realize about that is one of the reasons that's hilarious is that one, it's the only thing we can say quote from all of the ways that they insult him. But
true.
two, it's said by a person who on the show never insults anybody.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't insult people because she's
Awesome.
too busy taking care of business all the time, always, and she's always business in a way that's amazing. She never takes the time to be mean to people. In fact, her best laughs come from when other people say things to her, and she stops and looks at them like, "Excuse me?" And they're like, I didn't, I'm sorry. And so when she's insulting someone, it's like, all right, all bets are off. This guy's clearly a terrible person.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just want to go back and watch Veep now. You're making me want to watch In the Loop. See, I feel like talking about it actually. The great thing about comedies, I think this is true when you look at things like The Big Lebowski and Anchorman, that, and I would put Big Lebowski way above Anchorman in terms of quality of film, but both of them are actually, their cultural lives far outweigh, in my opinion, their artistic achievement. And I think Big Lebowski is the Coen Brothers, so clearly I think it's great. But would I say it's the best Coen Brothers movie? No.
Sure.
But they've got these cultural lives, and the reason is because the way that they're funny, we can talk about them, and it makes them even funnier in the talking about them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think it
does make
does.
sense.
I
Like,
think,
to some degree, the Farrelly brothers, or even someone I love, Mike Judge, well, Office Space, but I'd say, let's say Beavis and Butthead. Like, something is lost in if you haven't seen it. But like these guys, I feel like we can. I don't. Maybe I'm not making any sense.
No,
it just
think-
feels different.
I think the thread between even The Big Lebowski and something like In the Loop, and I think maybe what makes In the Loop more heartless than Veep is that it's the humor of patheticness. Like the only like emotion that's shown here in The Loop is just patheticness. You know, like even
It's
like
The
I don't know, I thought-
entire world is run by impotent people, basically.
Right. Well, and I think that was that scene which I was dying for in the bar when Toby's girlfriend finds out that he cheated on her, and he tries to explain it away by saying that he was he slept with that woman to try and stop this awful war.
So you're saying that you cheated on me for
Right.
the sake of stopping war. That's what
That's
you're
right.
saying. He's like,
And-
no,
and-
no.
And their bosses are at the table and just can't keep it together at
Yes,
all. And it's
that-
it's the most pathetic moment.
Him
and I
even
just-
trying to say it is the most pathetic thing I've ever
Right.
seen in my life.
And then when I had to stop and rewind because her boss comes back to her apartment to just like watch Toby pack his things up, and I was like, "Is that the same guy? I thought that is
Yep.
just some random old
Well, he
dude."
clearly has protective feelings for her at least.
Sure, but he's also
Protective?
just like spectacularly
At
impotent.
least.
He's
Right.
spectacularly what?
He's spectacularly impotent.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's true.
You know?
That is true.
Oh man. Oh, I don't know what else to say about this movie right now. So I think it's hilarious, and but again, I shouldn't even say it's hilarious. I mean, I just think it's. I look forward to. I want to see it again. It's so well constructed.
Yeah.
And I
I
look
think
forward to seeing it in bits.
Well, I
Like
think
I'm not going to sit down to watch this movie,
nice.
but I look forward to it being on television.
Yeah, I think it's well said.
I actually this movie makes me wish that we were all in the room together watching it.
Yeah. Well, Keith and I'll be in the room together, in rooms together later this week. So,
That sounds weird. Remember that talk we had about using metaphors
Why
and
would you-
sentences?
why
It
would
sounds
you-
weird.
no. I don't,
Why
I
would
don't, I
you-
don't remember that.
Are you guys just pouring salt on the wound?
Yes.
Yes.
I actually had a dream the other night that Andy and I were going to the movies together. And then I woke up and I started crying. It's like that song. Have you ever listened to the most depressing love song of all time? You Are My Sunshine.
That is exactly what I was about to bring up.
I like to call that the codependent national anthem because that song is a terrible song. You shouldn't teach it to people. I mean, first of all, if you said like, "You're my sunshine, you make me happy when skies are gray," that's a lovely thought. But then when you're like, "You're my only sunshine,"
Yes.
please don't take my sunshine away.
Yes.
The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping,
so wait,
I dreamt
wait,
I held you in my
Hold on.
It's not a codependent theme.
Hold
It's
on.
like
No,
a stalker
I
theme
disagree,
song.
Keith. I'm 100% on board with Phil here.
All right.
Here's the deal. and Phil, you can agree with me or you can disagree with me, or you can take this direction or not, and either way is fine. I only knew until I feel like maybe I read the lyrics once in my 20s at some point, but I only knew the chorus. And while the chorus has, as you pointed out, those lines that are fairly codependent, the majority is very sweet. And then I read, and feel free to totally bulldoze over me on this, but I think Second Breakfast Nation would really enjoy just sort of being by themselves, alone, finding these lyrics on the internet and reading them to themselves, because it will totally astonish you. Just totally astonish you. Having said that, if you would like to recite the lyrics, I will not stop you.
Nope. You know what? It's just, you're right. Just look it up and then be like, and judge for yourself if it's not the most codependent, depressing song ever.
Yes.
Yeah,
Masquerading as a love song.
I think that it's creepy and terrifying.
No, because I feel like it's not creepy and terrifying because the implication is that they were in a relationship at some point.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
But Andy, when this is the song that Elijah Wood sings to the girl outside her window in Man Without a Face, not Man Without a Face, Forever Young, the Mel Gibson opus Forever Young.
Yes.
It totally is adorable, but again, because he doesn't sing the creepy
Because
verse.
he only sings
The part that's not creepy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I mean, please don't. I don't know. I'm just. My idea of romance is completely different than it used to be. Like, I hear songs and I'm like, oh my gosh, get over yourself. Like, if I can't be with you, I'll die. Really? That's not true. Like, there are other people. Just relax.
I just think like the "You'll never know, dear, how much I love you" is just kind of like, really, you'll never know.
I have two. Right? Really, you'll never know.
Why,
I have two.
Why will you never know?
Right.
Because the restraining order? Is that why?
It's because it's so much you could never possibly fathom, which is passive aggressive in and of itself.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? You'll never know how much I love you because you just couldn't possibly love like that. The greatest angry song of all time, is a song by Bob Dylan, of course, called "Idiot Wind." Idiot Wind about a breakup.
Oh God.
The chorus of which is "Idiot Wind, blowing every time you move your teeth. You're an idiot, babe. It's a wonder that you still know how to breathe."
Oh God.
But it's actually a good song. In fact, listen to it and you'll be like, this is an amazing song. And it's the angriest song. But the final verse, it's an 8-minute song. So it's like, it's driving and it's fast. It's just like, he's describing the crappiness of this breakup. And at the end, he says, "You'll never know the hurt I suffered or the pain I rise above." But then he says, "And I'll never know the same about you, your holiness or your kind of love, and it makes me feel so sorry." It's so passive aggressive. It's so like, I'll never know just how amazing you are, and it just makes me so sorry. Your holiness or your kind of love. That's what it reminds me of. It's like this I'm saying one thing, but it's just like spitting. Ugh.
So
it all comes back to Bob Dylan.
Well, gosh, to sum up, In the Loop, extremely enjoyable, will grow in our esteem the more we see it, and You Are My Sunshine, just a terrible, terrible, terrible.
Really?
Just terrible.
It's tough, though, because it was written by the governor of Mississippi at the time. And it was written by a governor, governor of Louisiana.
Huh.
Oh, good.
Which is kind of amazing. So it is the Louisiana state song, which is troubling.
Oh, there's just so
troubling.
Well, when your governor writes a song.
Maybe.
No.
I'm with Keith on this one. So I think that'll do it for this segment, and we're gonna move on. Phil and I are gonna move on in just a moment to this week's 2 mailbag questions. But before that, we're gonna say goodbye to Keith. Keith, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Feel free to slink back to the shadows from whence you came.
Back to your hole.
Yes, the director hovel.
You just sound like he's the Balrog.
I think
Back to the shadows from whence you came.
Flame of Undun.
Keith,
I think I've gone through pretty much every Lord of the Rings character trope through this.
You shall not pass. You shall not pass.
From that, pulling the strings. I'm apparently
Pull the strings is from Ed Wood.
Right, but
It's
I'm just
from
saying.
Ed Wood.
I'm just saying. I'm the person behind the whole thing that doesn't
You
actually pay attention. So like that's
You,
Gandalf because he doesn't pay attention for half the.
you really need to see Ed Wood again. Andy, you really need to see Ed Wood again.
Okay.
That's all I want to say about
That's
that.
absolutely true.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I want to talk about Ed Wood right now.
All
right.
We won't,
That's-
but we will
that's-
soon.
All right.
Keith, thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. I'm gonna go not listen to this podcast while you guys answer the mailbag questions.
Clearly.
Sweet.
Have
Bye.
fun. Bye.
Bye now.
So that was fun. That was fun.
That was great,
Keith,
man.
Yeah.
Loved it.
First time.
That was great.
Yeah. First time for Keith on the podcast. First time. For
I was a
Director's
little
Cut.
worried there for a second that we got a little bit like what I mean, if you haven't seen In the Loop, that was the most boring conversation anyone has ever had. That's all I'm saying. But if you have seen it, you're gonna be like, all right, yeah, you know?
Yeah.
And by the way, someone said to me like, should I see the movie or listen to the podcast first? And I was like, oh no, see the movie,
Yeah.
the movie, always see the movie.
Yeah. And here's the deal. This will just get you to see In the Loop, which is a thing you should do. Whatever you end
Yeah.
up thinking about it, it's a movie you should see. It is. And correct me if I'm wrong. Streaming free on Amazon Prime.
That's correct. No,
Folks.
Netflix.
Oh, Netflix. Folks.
It is not streaming free on Amazon Prime. It's like $3 though for rented.
Sure, but it's streaming free on Netflix.
And I'm going to say something else.
Please do.
Go support your local DVD store. Do you think I'm kidding? Do you think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding.
Phil,
I have
I
a
do not
local
think-
DVD.
I
I
don't
know
think
you
you're
don't.
kidding.
No, I don't. I don't understand people. It's so much better than a red box. It's not even kidding. I don't even understand.
right? There's some zombie movie starring Danny Trejo that's in every Redbox I go to, and I don't get anything at the Redbox. I'm just like, anything interesting? Anything interesting? And it's on like the first page. It's like, this is what you're showing me on the first page? Really?
You have no.
Faux reels? Okay.
For reals?
Frills? Yeah. So,
It's Friday, Andy. What do we do on Friday? I'm trying to think.
mailbag.
Mailbag. All right.
We have. It's a special week. It's not a special week. It's a special week because I called it a special week, but also because good friend of the podcast, Daniel Carlson, is the person who has supplied both of our mailbag questions this week. And
Yes.
And Phil, if the good people of Second Breakfast Nation want to join in on the mailbaggy goodness, the mailbag fun, what should they do?
Well, I think the answer to that is simple, Andy. They can email us at secondbreakfastpodcast@gmail.com. That's secondbreakfastpodcast@gmail.com. That is just the letters spelled out secondbreakfastpodcast@gmail.com. No dots, no dashes, no numbers. secondbreakfastpodcast@gmail.com.
I fell asleep. What's the email address again?
secondbreakfastpodcast@gmail.com. And I want to, of course, talk up our contributor, Daniel Carlson, good friend of the show, sometime guest of the show, and movie review writer at pajiba.com. That's PAJIBA.com.
By the way, guys, I know that not only do most of you listen to us rather than watch us on YouTube, and I know that we're moving more towards that in general, but if you go back on YouTube to our old movies and video stores episode, which is the last time he guested on our show, I was wearing an eye patch.
You totally were.
I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Also, I'm gonna put that in there as maybe one of my 3 or 4 favorite episodes that we've ever done.
Agreed.
I really enjoyed that episode.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
So old movies and eye patches? No, old movies and video stores.
Indeed.
That's right.
Indeed. So,
Andy Roth wearing an eye patch.
It's amazing. It just.
By the way,
spectacular.
Andy was wearing an eye patch, and his biggest concern was whether he would be able to still go see something in IMAX 3D that weekend. Iron Man 3.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Well played. I didn't remember.
Priorities, my friend. Priorities.
I stand by that.
I agree. No, I'm on board.
Oh, good.
All right.
Oh, good.
All right.
And,
let's get to our mailbag questions.
And away we go. From Daniel Carlson. This is from Daniel Carlson.
Houston, Texas.
Indeed. This is a very minimalist mailbag. Daniel, favorite documentary?
Not even a real full sentence.
Yeah.
Favorite documentary?
That's it. We're done.
I'll go first. I don't like documentaries, so this is a very easy answer for me. I don't like watching them. I don't like them. The ones that everyone else loves, I'm like, you know what happens? I'll be watching a documentary and I'll be like, this is really great. And then I'll be like, wow, like, this is pretty cool. Okay, so they're going to wrap this up, right? And I'll click on display and it'll be 45 minutes into a 2-hour documentary. And I'm like, what? Like, no matter what you do, documentaries are too long. Those Paradise Lost documentaries, the ones about the murders in Arkansas,
Yeah.
they're like 2.5, 3 hours long. It's
Sure.
like, come on, buddy, come on. I know, I get it, and I've seen 2 of them. Okay, I know. Is there? Okay, my favorite documentarian is Errol Morris.
Nice.
I have seen actually several of his documentaries, and they are the only ones I've ever seen that haven't bored me.
Okay.
My favorite of his that I have seen is Fast, Cheap, and Out of Control,
Okay.
which is a glorious movie about people who have very strange jobs. There's a guy who's a topiary artist. Those are the people who cut trees to look like animals.
Yes.
There's a lion tamer, and there is a robot builder.
Awesome.
And they're totally 3 different people. They're not friends. They don't have like a secret club or whatever.
Right.
It's just a documentary about these 3 people interwoven.
Okay.
He does one about a guy called Mr. Death. It's about a guy who used to go around. He became an expert on capital punishment.
Okay.
And he was a freelancer who would get hired by governments to help them find flaws in the way that they executed people, because he was trying to make the way that they executed people be as humane as possible, which sounds funny, but his job was to like, how do we make sure that everything, all their stuff works in such a way that like they get killed properly.
That's
and what happens is he ends up going and visiting Auschwitz and deciding based on his understanding of the way like people use gas chambers and things that there were no executions at Auschwitz. And then his career falls apart and his wife leaves him and everyone thinks he's a Nazi. It's an amazing documentary, and I've only seen those 2, and when I saw one other one of his very first documentary, which I forget the name of, but
The Thin Blue Line.
no, his very first. It was before that.
Okay.
Thin Blue Line is streaming on Netflix. I will watch it eventually because again, I love Errol Morris.
Can I say something?
Please.
Someone by the name of Keith Percaro is in town this week, and I
know.
saw him today. And here's the deal: The Thin Blue Line might be our next director's cut,
Fair enough.
because I have never seen it, and he loves it. And he was like, "I want to watch it again." And
That's great.
Yeah. So there you go.
It's great. I have an idea what your answer will be, but go ahead and answer it, and then I will see if I was correct.
You know exactly what it's going to be, and it is a super long documentary, and there is not a moment of it that I am not transfixed. That documentary is Hoop Dreams.
I knew it. I haven't seen it.
It is. I'll just say this: I would be very surprised if you didn't love it. I just would.
I would be very surprised if I didn't love it based on what everybody has said.
It is more. It is funnier, sadder, more exciting, more devastating, more uplifting than 99% of the movies ever made. And the fact that it is real, like there are things like, oh, it's a documentary, sweet, okay. If I watched a fictionalized version of that, I don't think I would have a significantly different response. But there is a scene. It is the story of 2 inner city high school students, inner city kids, who, as they enter high school, you meet them at the tail end of 8th grade, and they are basketball phenoms, and they are recruited to go to this powerhouse private school in the suburbs of Chicago, and it is their story. It takes their story through high school. There is truly no way, because it's real life, there is no way to predict what is going to happen, where these kids are going to end up. And I am tearing up thinking about it. There is a scene most of the way through the movie. About halfway through the movie, where one of the 2 kids has free throws to decide a playoff game.
Oh my gosh!
It is, and it's real life, right?
Right.
Nobody scripted it. He makes them or he misses them.
Right.
Done. And by this point, you love this kid, and there is not an inch of my body that is not covered in goose flesh. It is, and that is not to say what happens.
Someday we need to figure out if it's a regional thing on who says Goosebumps and who says Gooseflesh.
I think that is the first time I have ever said Gooseflesh in my entire life.
Well,
no joke.
Something's wrong. Something has happened to you. I want to see Hoop Dreams. I will see Hoop Dreams. Darn it. Also, I made a mistake because I forgot that I do love documentaries when they're about rock stars. Completely and utterly forgot that. Like when I say it's not like, and I guess I realize I don't think of them as documentaries because it's like it's cheating. But like Bob Dylan's Don't Look Back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the ones they put on HBO and public, Martin Scorsese did one on Dylan called No Direction Home, which is phenomenal. He did one on George Harrison that I loved, and then Scorsese did The Last Waltz, which is a documentary about the last concert of the band ever did.
Right.
These are all technically documentaries. There's a documentary on the White Stripes called Under Great White Northern Lights. So it turns out I love and then there's It Might Get Loud. Which was not actually that good of a documentary, but it puts Jack White, The Edge, and Jimmy Page in a room together for 2 hours.
Oh, you told me about this. Right.
It's not a great documentary, but it's got great moments. So, so I guess I do like documentaries when they're about rock stars.
Fair.
I like that documentary about Amadeus called Amadeus. Oh, that wasn't a documentary.
Love it. Man, that movie.
Anyways, Don't Look Back would be my actual pick, I think. If
Okay.
I had to pick favorite documentary, Don't Look Back.
Don't Look Back and Hoop Dreams. Go out and see them. They're both great.
Yep.
Next question from a young man named Daniel Carlson.
Daniel Carlson from Houston, Texas?
Yes, writes for
Fantastic.
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 What's your favorite movie about your profession?
Oh, gosh, I hate being a broken record here. I really do.
No, you don't.
No, I mean I do because I feel like I feel like people will go, "Wow, Phil's only seen 4 movies." But I really and truly and deeply and all those other words love The Mission.
Sure.
And its understanding of priesthood and its taking it seriously and asking serious questions about religion in a way that is tied closely to society and is pushing us to think about how we interact with how religious people are meant to interact with our culture, with our government. And it does it in a way that is so far removed from our current context that it allows you to actually
like grapple with the questions?
Grapple with the questions, because if it was actually closer to our current context, you would have such a visceral reaction, like you wouldn't be able to deal with it.
Right, that makes sense.
And so that with a close runner-up would be The Apostle with Robert Duvall.
Nice, nice. I like it.
Which was written and directed by Robert Duvall, and if you'll see right here, I have a copy of it. And if you look on the inside, you'll see that it's signed by Robert Duvall.
Awesome.
So I love that movie. Obviously, I don't have he's a different kind of minister than I am.
Wow, good.
I haven't ever accidentally killed a man, but there is something about his charisma, but no, you know what? That's not even what it is. Charisma is a whole other thing. He is a character who I believe in my heart and soul totally and utterly believes in God and is trying to deal with that.
Yeah.
That's not the part that's in question.
Oh,
right?
That's true. That yes.
And
yes,
and the
true.
way that and he really does believe in his mission, and it's not one of those movies where he's maybe secretly full of it. Like he's a lot of things, but he totally believes in his mission, and it's really awesome to see that. And it's just a beautiful movie.
It is.
So those are my 2 favorite movies about my profession.
It's an astonishing performance.
Yep.
So the best movie about the legal profession, kind of, maybe the best movie about the legal profession, kind of doesn't count. For me for this answer, because I might go with 12 Angry Men. And that's 12 jurors in a room, and that's it. But I just, that movie is so wonderful, I had to mention it because it's close enough to the legal profession. My final 2 are The Verdict with Paul Newman.
Okay. Yes.
And
I haven't seen that in so long.
Oh, it is better than you remember. You know, and Anatomy of a Murder.
Wow, yes.
And I am going to go. My final decision is Anatomy of a Murder, and here is why. They are both unbelievably good movies. There is no realistic way to choose between them on the basis of quality. And
Right.
frankly, on the basis of my love for them, there is no way to choose between the two of them. But
Right.
the verdict is, and I don't say this as an insult, although I fear it might come off that way. The verdict is a Hollywood movie.
Yep.
Like it feels like a Hollywood movie about a lawyer.
Yep.
If you watch Anatomy of a Murder and you take notes, you will be able to build a defense the way a defense lawyer builds one.
That's pretty awesome.
Like client interviews, it's crazy. It is great. It is procedurally astonishingly accurate.
Love that.
Yeah. And as great as Paul Newman is, Jimmy Stewart takes a backseat to nobody. So
Nobody.
Nobody. Zero people.
Nobody puts Jimmy Stewart in a corner.
That's right. That's right.
Just saying that.
Yeah. So that's my answer. That's my answer. Anatomy of a Murder, and that is another movie. I'm not currently watching it, so it's better than I remember it.
Sure.
You know?
Yes, I concur with you.
There we go. And you know what? We're done.
All right. Well, in that case, thank you. Let's. Wait, you know what? Just closed up the mailbag for the week.
I hope you remember that sound effect, because you're gonna have to do that every week, because that's amazing.
I'll work on it.
Okay, good. So, folks, that does bring us to the end of the mailbag, the end of this podcast, and the end of the week of Second Breakfast Podcast. So we hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. You haven't.
Nope.
And nope. And we will see you again next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.